everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Mabon of Light Cycle Astrology. Today we've got a fun aspect to talk about. The goddess of love, Venus, is beginning to engage a square to Uranus, the god of revolution. Let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock and take a look at this aspect. So the aspect is beginning to engage right now, which is Thursday the 12th here of January. And it is going to be moving towards perfection, moving through the square and perfecting about Saturday evening, the 14th. And then it is going to be separating out all the way until Monday. So that's the range that we see this aspect playing out. But it is one of our big weekend aspects. And it's a pretty exciting one because we're talking about the goddess of love, joy, and pleasure, beauty, relationships, making a pretty dynamic square to the god of revolution and disruption, and among other things. So it's definitely an exciting aspect to take a look at today. And so we're going to get into the archetypal themes of this. I have 10 themes that I came up with when I looked at where these planets were, what kind of relationship are they engaging in right now with the square aspect. And okay, so let's jump into some of these themes now. How do we build an interpretation based on, you know, who is where and in what sign and in what aspect? How do we come up with some of these basic delineation techniques? Well, the first thing that I liked to look at was that we're talking about Venus and Uranus. Both of these planets are in signs that are said to be solid or fixed. And that's because essentially, for instance, if we take Capricorn as a sign that turns us from autumn into winter, right? 0 degrees of Capricorn is that tropos sign that brings us into a new season. But in Capricorn, that new seasonal energy is not yet completely stabilized. And it is the job of this middle sign. Every season has that middle sign that its job is basically to take that new seasonal energy and begin to stabilize it. And in the ancient world, the word that they used for that sign was solid. And today we a lot of times use the word fixed for these signs, but our 4 fixed or solid signs are going to be Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. And these are all, so you can see, these are all signs that are sandwiched between the first sign of a season and the last sign of the season. So right off the bat, we know that this energy is happening in or among 2 signs. There are 2 gods or goddesses and a god hanging out in signs that are fixed, meaning they are going to behave in such a way where, number one, they don't necessarily like to change all that much. Kind of a stubborn, stuck, consistent kind of sign. Also, if there is change, it is not very quick. It's more slow. It takes some time to change. So this square dynamic, you know, squares were said to be of the nature of Mars, meaning they can be dynamically inceptualizing. They can be very instrumental in getting something going, getting something started, getting something off the ground, etc. But they can also have that quality of conflict or war, or even violence. You know, there can be this kind of tension that is very, very defensive, aggressive, life promoting, or life destroying. That's the kind of the essence of a square at times. So right off the bat, we're beginning to build a way to interpret how is this aspect that isn't like the world's longest aspect. It's just happening over the weekend, but we're beginning to build a sense of what this could archetypally represent down here on the planet for us humans walking around, potentially reflecting or mirroring upon these archetypes as they form in the sky. So that is the beginning. Now, one thing that we are also going to look at is very, very important for this particular aspect is which planet is in the superior position. And to do that, we look at the center of the chart or the circle. And whatever planet is to the right in ancient astrology was thought to be the planet that was in the superior or dominant position. So we have Venus on the right and we have Uranus on the left. So what that means is that Venus is going to be the one that is dominating the relationship or dominating the exchange. So we can expect to see a Venus that is filtering through Saturn, a god that is of maturity and age and contemplation, and seriousness. Venus running through a more serious, contemplative, and most likely aged or mature sign. And Venus is, obviously a feminine or yin kind of expression of an archetype. So right off the bat, we could see that there may be an expression that is Venusian or feminine in some way, or at least yin in some way, that is stubborn and also maybe connected with something that is mature or experienced or older and more serious, right? You get the sense that we're talking about maybe like somebody's grandma or at least a parent, as compared to like a daughter or something like that. But there is a strong Venusian theme with this, because not only are we talking about Venus filtering through a Saturn temple, filtering a Venusian expression through a Saturnine temple, but we also see that when we are looking at Uranus, well, Uranus is having to filter through a Venusian temple. But on the left-hand side of the equation, we are talking about a Venusian place that is springtime and hence kind of young and spring-like or youthful. So it's almost like Venus against Venus, right? Or like the older Venus overcomes, dominates, makes war upon, or at least is in tension with a younger, less mature, kind of revolutionary energy that has to filter through Venusian things. So that's the setup right there for the archetypal combinations. Now, let me go ahead and share with you my 10 archetypal themes that I came up with thinking, just keeping all of those things in my mind. So theme number 1 is accepting or loving one's age and beauty over a less mature, more experimental or technologically enhanced beauty. So this is like, we all get older. We all have to face the withering decay of age. And of course, nobody wants to lose beauty. But this may be a time over the weekend or over the next couple of days where it's like you can find peace or almost love the way in which you have become classically beautiful. And this might overcome maybe a previous idea or some idea that is maybe you trying to experiment with regaining some youthful beauty, or maybe you even thought about having something that involves technology, because Uranus is a god of technology and science. So maybe something cosmetic surgery, or anything that has to do with more of like a technology or a science-based form of revitalizing a youthful beauty. It's as if the maturity of Venus through that Saturn sign is somehow being the one to say, you know what, this is okay. Like, you're good. You're still beautiful. It's not exactly the same as you were when you were 25 or whatever, but it isn't any less lovable, beautiful. At the end of the day, it's like more of an exquisite kind of beauty. And it's rather in comparison instead of something that is not as good, I would say. And it's as if there's a maturation process in this sort of, in one of these themes like this, where you could not accept, but almost get to a point where you love and enjoy that kind of beauty. Okay, theme number 2 is kind of the opposite side of the coin to theme number 1, which is that you might rebel against the aging of time as it relates to beauty, style, art. It doesn't have to be just beauty. It could be anything within style. or art or creativity or anything like that. Just rebelling against, saying, no, I'm not going to let go of my youth. I'm going to hold on to my youth. I'm going to find some exciting new technology that allows me to remain, eternally youthful. And or just having that rebellious kind of flare up of inspiration take place in you over the weekend, where you're just like, all I need is exercise and some good advancements in science or whatever to do that. And so I could see the rebelling against the Saturnine qualities that is happening over in Aquarius there. And maybe that's what the square represents, is that tension or that conflict, right? That more Marsy kind of quality that's coming in. Okay, theme number 3, a more mature parent having to talk to their teenager about rebellious and sexual behavior, maybe on social platforms or by means of them using like technology like phones, Twitter, etc. So yeah, or I guess I probably dating myself by even saying Twitter by this point, but this is like that classic, we always see this theme kind of in movies nowadays, where there's what was I watching? Well, I'm not going to remember the name, but it was this mom who murders somebody, and her daughter lives with the knowledge that her mom had murdered somebody in the past, and her mom, had a child very young, and now she has a teenage daughter that is extremely rebellious and is starting to get into sexual kinds of behavior. And you get these themes a lot where it's almost as if there has to be an older, wiser, or more mature parent that has to come in and sort of overcome or dominate, but out of love, like dominate for the sake of like, hey, you got to be careful. You're inexperienced. You are putting yourself out there. Maybe you're being inappropriate sexually at a young age. That kind of theme I could see kind of coming over the weekend right now for some people. Okay. Theme number 4, you go to your, okay. Oh, sorry. I forgot an R there. Your go-to way of creativity. So the established aesthetic, or the way that you are in the groove of saying, okay, there's something I do creatively all the time, and this is my way of doing it. Like for me, it would be how I make this content or whatever. This way, then like, okay, I've got my system. I've got my go-to way to strike up that creativity, or I've got my go-to aesthetic, right? My Venusian aesthetic that I always go to. That overcomes maybe a new or more experimental creative method. Maybe you've been playing around or toying with the idea of doing something different or new. Maybe now is not the right time to actually experiment with that new way of creativity. Now, again, we could also see maybe the flip side of this, where you do rebel against the way that you always do things creatively, and you do try to do that. But I think we might be in a more conservative side of the coin with this one, where it's like you kind of been maybe on the verge of trying something new, but you just, now it just doesn't seem like quite the right time to do it. Somehow or another, Venus in Aquarius is saying, you know what? We know how to do this. Let's not change it just yet. Now isn't quite the right time. And maybe there's just a tension between those two things in your mind right now. Okay. Theme number 5 is revenge against the nerds. I love this one. Some of you might be too young to even know what I'm talking about, but revenge against the nerds this is very like Venus in Aquarius making a square to Uranus in Taurus, right? The beautiful, popular insiders of the establishment, the sorority, established, beautiful people. Getting revenge or attacking that revolutionary young genius spirit of culture in politics, natural science, etc. So we could see that there might be this sort of Aquarius has to do with humanity, but it's Saturn oftentimes is a god of popularity and the status quo. And Saturn kind of sits on the fence. He can either be like the leader of the popular status quo group, or he can be the leader of the outsiders to that group. So you could see both dynamics working out here, but I get the sense that there's sort of, because it's Venus, Venus is also, obviously social in nature and very graceful, knows what to do in social situations, knows how to be graceful towards other people socially, which is why Venus is a likable, lovable kind of archetype. So I get the sense that there's like the proper social etiquette, status quo kind of in the insider group that may be almost like being aggressive towards something that is revolutionary, um, or like has a genius kind of inventive quality that may be coming through culture as it relates to social types of things, Venusian cultural types of things, or potentially politics, because politics is essentially people relating to each other and having to work things out and harmonize to some degree. Although we haven't seen it very much, but you know what I'm saying. You get the spirit of that, at least, I think. Natural sciences, an earthy sign like Taurus, kind of those natural sciences with Uranus there. So Revenge Against the Nerds, I think that's interesting. Number 6, ideological clashing among friends, loved ones, family, etc. about who does what. What do we do together, or how do we go about doing it? So both Aquarius and Taurus have strong ideological opinions on everything, right? And so again, that sort of solid, fixed thing coming in, and it's as if it's the same, it's very Venusian. So we're talking about an energy that is definitely about us being with people, but it's like maybe that square energy comes in with, well, I think we should go to this movie on the weekend. And then somebody else says, no, 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 we should save our money. Like there's a lot of inflation right now. Let's stay home and just watch something on TV. A little bit of that. So not the biggest, these transits don't have to be about big major things, right? They can be about just little stuff that we see, but something like that, where it's like there's a clashing within a social, within your relationship or with friends or with family or whoever, that has this essence of like, we're doing something together, but how do we do it? What are we doing? And there's like one side that's maybe a bit more conservative, wants to be a little more Saturnine, and then there's the other side that wants to be a little bit wild and free and eccentric and something like that. Okay, which is very close to theme number 7, agreeing for the need to revolt, but not agreeing on how to do it. The image I got with this one was thinking about the Revolutionary War. Uranus is always connected with the Revolutionary War because it was discovered around the time of the American Revolution. So this one is sort of like this. It's like, imagine that you and your comrades are there, and you're fighting against the British or whatever. And I'm not, if you're British, hopefully you don't take offense by this, but just to paint kind of a picture, right? Let's say you're Americans fighting in the Revolutionary War, and it's sort of like this. It's like you all agree that you should be revolutionaries. The reason where we get that is because Saturn is a sign of the outsider, the rebel, right? Bob Marley was an Aquarius. So you do get that rebellious rebel side of Aquarius. Saturn as a god that sits on the edge of both what is popular and what is outside to that. So he's a god that takes care of both sides. He can be both faces. He can be the populist, or he can be the revolutionary. So you have Venus, who is being connected with social things in a revolutionary sign, And then you have on one side of the equation, then you have the revolutionary Uranus filtering through Venusian temple-like things. So everybody's in revolution, but the square between them comes in with something like, well, I think we should march up to Lexington first. No, no, no. I think we should go down to, wherever. Sorry, my revolutionary history is not what it should be, but you get the point. It's like there's a disagreement or tension or clash. There's a winner and a loser about how do you go about fighting the revolution. That's where the clash comes in. There's not a disagreement on the fact that we are being revolutionary perhaps with this, but it's how do we do it? Which way do we fight? Where do we go first? And that's where the bickering comes in. We all agree, maybe as another example, that there's too much inflation. And so, the thing with Congress right now and the Speaker of the House and all that, a little bit like that. We sort of all agree that we need to work together, that change needs to happen, that things are needing to be addressed, but the bickering happens within that context. I think that's the square dynamic we're seeing. Okay. Number 8. Eccentric or dangerous or daring ways to have fun, sex, or love. Yeah, that's just more of that Uranian side potentially coming out that sort of kicks back against the more conservative Venus and Saturn side. Just going out there and doing something potentially dangerous or daring and having fun or having risque sex in public, or being attracted to somebody that is a little outside of who we would normally be attracted to. Kind of those typical Venus square Uranus themes. That's a big one right there. Okay, 9. This one for me is really interesting, and I see this kind of personally shaping up in my life. So I got number 9 almost through personal examination. But that is duties or obligations towards others superseding your moment of personal breakthrough as an innovator, as it pertains to your future aspirations. So this is just simply that you might have to do something. This square having the nature of Mars being the god of sacrifice at times. It needs to sacrifice himself at times. It needs to go out and fight a war and potentially lose his life in order to protect his loved ones, the warrior that dies. There's Venus in Aquarius being responsible, mature, doing the things for the loved ones, doing the planet of obligation and duties as Saturn is, having to just go, okay, I got to do this stuff. This is just what has to happen. And somehow this is taking place at the same moment where you might be having more of like a breakthrough as an innovator, being represented by that Uranus in Taurus, kind of just that new springtime energy that Uranus finds himself in, having some kind of breakthrough or innovation happening, some kind of genius that is like cracking through the mold, and having that happen at the same time that you need to fulfill obligations or duties to keep everything going because people depend on you. But having it happen at the same time that you are being an innovator as it pertains to maybe something more personal or some future aspiration, as you see it. Okay. And last but not least, probably my favorite, just because it's the funniest to me, joining a sex cult or leaving a sex cult. So that one probably doesn't need very much explanation, except for that, again, we're dealing with both of these planets are in places that have to do with love and are having these kind of outside of the box qualities to them. So you might see somebody that's getting out of a sex cult. When I say sex cult, I'm obviously being like tongue in cheek, but you could interpret that as maybe not like an actual sex cult, or maybe it is, but more in the sense of like, are you dating multiple people? Are you going to get into that, or are you deciding to maybe walk away from that and commit to one person? Themes like that. Maybe like, on the more wild side, it could be something like monogamy characterized by Venus in Aquarius versus like polyamory, it's characterized by Uranus in Taurus, something like that, right? Okay, so that's what I have. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Tomorrow, I think what we're going to do is take this aspect and run it through the 12 rising signs to give you an idea about where this radical Venusian energy could be playing out in your houses for all 12 rising signs. That should be pretty fun. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all the new subscribers, and it's been really nice to see the channel grow a little bit as I've been working hard on the channel. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much, everybody. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon. Bye.